Ladies and gentlemen, we are taking a look at defeating Archaedas in heroic mode, boss from League of Explorers, with every single hero class and a deck of basic and common cards only. Archaedas is the statue guy. He puts statues on both sides of the board, and a very effective, deck you can build just utilizes those statues. So rather than them being a detriment, you actually buff them and can attack with them and get value out of them. That said, you need a little bit more because he does have a card which very quickly gives a large buff to all his minions that can really overwhelm you, and they have a lot of health and are hard to get through. So early on you want to make sure that you have minions on your side of the board and quickly snowball to the point where you can kill his off as soon as he plays them. This is where things like Crazed Alchemist come in handy, even Kooky Chemist in terms of more modern cards, so that ideally he can only ever get that spell off on one statue rather than two, so that you can stay ahead on board. His other spell to be wary of if the statues do get out of hand, so you generally do actually want to kill them off over your other minions. He does have a spell which does a lot of damage, which increases based on the number of statues present. That said, I'd say it's on the easier side, definitely easier than average for heroic buffs. If you build a deck that buffs your statues and has some Crazed Alchemists or Shadow Word Pains, ways to quickly remove his statues, you should be in pretty good shape. Druid is a particularly effective class to take him on with because it has a lot of ways to buff your board between Mark of the Lotus, Power of the Wilds, Mark of the Wilds, Savage Roars, Mark of Nature, etc. As well as the normal utility minions that you put into almost any class's deck that is against Archaedas, like Abusive Sergeants, Direwolf Elphas, Lance Carriers, Defender of Arguses, etc. Soul of the Forest is a nice way because you will have a board so you can kill your guys off and still have minions left over. Savage Roar can sort of give you lethal towards the end. And Feral Rage is just a flexible way to help take down one of his statues or heal you up a bit if you took a bit too much damage early on. As is Earthen Scales, is something that buffs and gives you a bit of armor as well. So that's the Druid deck. Druid's also the class I chose for a basic and common card only deck that could take him down. We'll take a look at that at the end of the video. With Hunter, you can actually have a bit of fun with Explorer's Hat. Put hats on your statues. The great thing about that is as you kill them off, you keep getting this card back, which you can put on statues. You'll always have statues. You'll always have this hat, essentially. So it's a pretty fun way to take him on. You have Hunter's Mark, is a very good tool to take out his statue or statues once he's buffed it. Otherwise, the normal ways to buff things, Glaive Zuka's another nice addition in Hunter. Master Swordsmith a little on the weaker side, but it's in there. Your usual utility Hunter cards like Animal Companion and an Eaglehorn Bow to help you get value repeatedly taking out minions. Infest is kind of like your Soul of the Forest in Druid. One in Hanzo Meccano can be nice once your minions do have attack to get even more value out of them since you're buffing your board. Same with Call of the Wild. Leok will buff all the statues and just it's a nice late game sort of addition. And Mukla's Champion, a very effective way if you do have board control to keep making your statues more and more of a threat, to be able to march them into things or just hit face. Mage is in the same family of solution as the ones I've just looked at, but it has a bit more of defensive tools. So it has some things to make your spells cheap or get out your spells in the form of Mad Scientist, and you have counter spells to guard against his spell that can do a ton of damage based on the statues on the board, or guard against him like buffing, a big board that makes it very hard to get on top. So counter spells effective. You have Flame Strike as well for some late game ability to just remove his board and get way ahead yourself. Other than that, you have Crazed Alchemist as usual to flip one of his statues instantly. Doomsayer if you don't draw the right things early on to have a chance at resetting the board. As well as Mukla's Champion and similar things to what we've discussed in the past decks. Paladin is the class I beat him with at the time, And I beat him with a secret Paladin deck that I did not tweak at all. I managed to win with it before I needed to try craft my own deck, as I was just exploring like what does Archaedas look like in heroic mode. Now you do have some natural occurring buffs in here, like getting off an early Avenge can put you in good shape. Competitive Spirit can buff your board of statues. You can get a good early start with your Secret Keepers, your Horned Creepers, those secrets. Knife Juggler will keep firing as he summons a statue of yours each turn. Muster for Battle, Blessing of Kings, you have some nice ways to buff your dudes. But as always, once you get Mysterious Challenger out, you make his board ineffective. You're going to get a competitive Spirit off on your whole board and avenge something. You can really start going to town, and it's easy to see why, this overpowered deck of the day was enough to take out Archaedas. In the case of Priest, you can use a tool which Priest loves to use on minions it gets with a lot of health and doesn't really care what their attack is early on. So we have the famous, infamous Divine Spirit Inner combo. You're getting a constant stream of high health, 0 attack dudes. You can, Power Word shield them up. We have the Radiant Elemental, which can make them cheaper. Power Word shield them up. Potentially give them even more buff with things like Velen's Chosen. If you get off a double Divine Spirit in a fire, it's very easy to see why, you can end the game very quickly. You have your usual tools to do a bit of buffing. You have your Crazed Alchemist as always to make sure he doesn't get off to too crazy a start, and Shadow Word Pain's effective for that too. You have Master Spell as an answer if he does get off his sort of minion buff across a large-ish board. You also have Shadow Madnesses and Cabal Shadow Priest to make sure that you can steal his stuff to give you even more targets for buff and some protection against him buffing his board a bit. Rogue is along the same lines, but has some interesting tools. So it has it has the defensive Doomsayer in here as well. Rogue obviously has some nice tools like Cold Blood to be able to pump up a statue to be a meaningful threat. One Cold Light for draw, since Rogue is sort of weak on draw otherwise. Valspine Slayer is very effective removal if he does have a big statue that's a threat. You have Envenom Weapon is very valuable. Even putting it on your dagger, ordinarily it's only 1 attack. It'll kill 2 statues over 2 turns that really help you stay ahead on board. Can get it off on an Assassin's Blade and be able to remove 4 statues. Captain Greenskin can even buff that statue, the weapon further. And this deck even includes 2 Enhancer Meccano because you're a little more likely with the Cold Bloods to get off threatening boards. Getting Wind Fury or Divine Shield can be pretty powerful. Shaman kind of has the ideal tools if you have a constantly generating board that not only you're trying to generate your board, your opponent is helping you in the form of Bloodlust, and everything is awesome even to be able to really burst him down if even if you don't get completely ahead on board, if you just have been whittling him down and eventually have a lot of minions on board, this gives you a way to finish him off. Crazed Alchemist, 1 Doomsayer felt right for this. You do have Earth Shocks as well to get rid of a threatening board on his side or a threatening minion. Devolve could maybe fit in here as well. Put in 2 Cold Light Oracle to just guarantee you some card draw, and a little bit of synergy with everything is awesome. Hexes are great single target removal as well, of course. Mana Tide for some even more card draw, because there's more card draw in this deck because of the power of the Bloodlust and Everything is Awesome, which we have 2 of each. They're so powerful that you want to draw into them because you will have all these minions on board waiting to make him pay as soon as you do. In the case of Warlock, we kind of end up similar to Zoo. I mean, old school Zoo, the whole point was to actually buff a bunch of little guys. You don't literally have 0 attack minions, but you have Power Overwhelmings, Abusive Sergeants, Direwolf Alphas. These all go in normal Zoo. I've thrown in a few extra tools for even more buffs, like Lance Carriers, Master Swordsmiths, Blood Fury Potion, just an easy way to give a statue some attack. Blast Crystal Potion, single target removal for his side of the board. 1 Enhancer Meccano, a Shadow Flamer, some emergency AoE if you just need to like sort of wipe his board out to ensure your advantage. Mookla's Champion, really good if you can keep that out for a couple of turns. And we do have the double defensive tools of Crazed Alchemist and Doomsayer. Almost nothing new compared to what we've looked at earlier when it comes to Warrior. The Warrior specific tools you've had that you have are Execute, very cheap removal of a big threat. We do run 2 Spellbreakers to make sure we can get rid of threats as well, and just life gain. So if you do take a bit of damage early on, you can recover. We put in 2 Gorehowl so that you can keep taking down his statues that spawn and other minions, and Adjustica Trueheart to give you the life gain over time to really take advantage of that. Other than that, same theme, Crazed Alchemists and Doomsayers to get rid of his early guys, and then just ways to buff your minions, including Cruel Taskmaster. Last but not least, you see a screenshot here of beating Archaedas with basic and common cards only. We use this Druid deck. As I said earlier, Druid is one of the best classes because it has so many ways to buff minions. This deck I built was after Knights of the Frozen Thrones came out, so we also have access to Bone Mares. Man, do those take advantage of your statues in a big way. Now we have lots of buffs between Mark of the Lotus, Mark of the Wild, Power of the Wild to your whole board, Wild Growth to ramp you up to be able to use this tools, double Savage Roar. Because we have the space and Crazed Alchemist is not common, we fortunately do have Kooky Chemist, which is common. Now we don't have Doomsayers, so in this basic and common card only deck, you can get wiped out a little earlier if he sort of gets out a few statues quickly and buffs them all. You can be kind of far behind, so you're more likely to get run over earlier, but if you don't get blown away sort of at the start, this can help make sure that you eventually make sure he can't snowball his buff on too many statues. You have Naturalize as well as sort of an emergency in there to be able to deal with like one big threat he has early on that would otherwise just run you over. Accursed Veteran makes it into this as well to act as an enabler. Innovate's a little bit less powerful now since the nerf. I think I put it in pre-nerf. You might want to get rid of that in the deck nowadays. But anyway, this is the deck that we use to take him out with basic and common cards only. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how to take out Heroic Archaedas with every single hero class and even the super budget deck. Good luck out there if you're yet to try it. See you next time.